Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 10. We'll explain about Islamic view and education science about language education theories. First, introduce the member of Group 10. First, I am Ananto Dwi Nugroho with student number 14. Then there's Retno Cahyaningtyas with student number 17. Then there is Danang Widyardika with student number 21. And the last is Nabila Indah Nuraeni with student number 37. First, I will explain the purpose of language education from an Islamic perspective. We can draw the purpose of language education from Quran Surat Al-Hujurat verse 13, which contains, "O people, indeed we have created you from a man and woman, then we made you nations and tribes so that you would know each other. Surely the noblest among you in the sight of Allah is the most pious one. Truly, Allah is all-knowing, most meticulous." We can take from this that humans are different from one and another. Of course, they have their own language. Therefore, the purpose of language education is to communicate with each other. Now we know about the purpose of language education in an Islamic perspective. Let's move to the position of language education according to an Islamic perspective. Syekh Muhammad bin Salih al-Utaihim rahimahullah said, "Learning is wasilah. If you need it as wasilah to preach Allah, then the law is obligatory. If you do not need it, then do not you busy your time with it. Keep yourself busy with the more important and useful, and people have different needs for English." This means that as long as we need it and is useful for ourselves and the others, then it is obligatory. And then now we move to Islamic ethics in the application of language science. Language teachers are tasked with teaching language as well as teaching Islamic teachings and language moral, both explicit and implicit. There are 5 transcendence value of language learning skills. The first one is learning to read, based on the value contained in Surah Al-Alaq, verse 1 to 5. Without reading, people will be blind to knowledge. Because reading is a window to knowledge, students should be aware that reading is a commandment of the Lord. Thus, reading is a form of worship. Number 2 is listening is a medium for absorbing information in the form of ideas, to resist complaint, etc. In learning process, the teacher can insert the meaning of a few of surah from the Al-Quran. Number 3 is talking. In the teaching of Islam, good speech, which has benefit for others, is better in value than sadaqah followed by insult to the recipient. This is the transcendence value of speaking skill. For this reason, it's necessary to provide a polite, pragmatic way of speaking so that oral communication can be benefit for the others. Number 4 is writing. Writing is part of dawah as long as the information provided can help others. Writing is an effective method to convey information openly. And the last one is an appreciate literature works. Apart from choosing literature works, a moral foundation is also needed to imitate the behavior of the others correctly. The literature work is the same as the Al-Quran. Al-Quran is the example of the literature work. Now the next material will be explained by Retno Cahyaningtyas.
Thank you, Ananto. Okay, I'm Retno Ayu Cahyaningtyas, and I will explain further material related to the function and role of language in dakwah, the application of language education based on Sunnatullah and Qadarullah, and forms of methods and techniques of language education is an Islamic perspective. Without any further ado, let's go to the first topic. The function and role of language in dakwah. The role of language in development of dakwah seems to be increasing. This is evidenced by the increasing number of television shows on religious broadcasting and the publication of religious books that are published every year. These two things further show how big the role of language is in dakwah activities. With language, dakwah is conveyed orally and in writing. As mentioned above, indeed, without language, nothing is thought of, and nothing is said. Furthermore, it is the use of language that plays a very important role in determining the success of preaching. As an illustration, it can be seen that observe how well-known ustads such as Ustad Abdul Somad, Yusuf Mansur, A'ajim, and Ustad Arifin Ilham convey messages of truth in Islam. They all, of course, try to package it in interesting language and with their own style. Their success in attracting public attention cannot be denied, all because of their shrewdness in playing the language. Okay, that's all about the function and role of language in dakwah. Next, we are going to talk about the second one, the application of language education based on Sunnatullah and Qadarullah. Is that knowledge based on Sunnatullah? Sunnatullah means the provisions, laws, or decrees of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So all forms of knowledge, along with all theories and formula in it, which are known and accepted by humans, are basically only the result of disclosure of a very small portion of his knowledge, especially Sunnatullah. Then, what about knowledge based on Qadarullah? Qadarullah comes from the word Qadar, which means destiny or Allah decision. Rasulullah SAW said, "There is no fate in either one of you until he believes in the good and bad Qadar of Allah, and is convinced that what befall him does not escape from him, and what is spread from him will not happen to him." Okay, this is an application in language education. This can be applied to language education by teaching that the knowledge we get will not last long and can be taken at any time by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So we are taught to remain humble and continue to spread the knowledge that we have acquired. Okay, everybody, now let's move on to the next point. That is forms of methods and techniques of language education is an Islamic perspective. There are some points here. The first one, the lecture method. The role of the facilitator means teacher in the lecture method is very active and dominant, while students just sit and listen. And number two, brainstorming. During the brainstorming, students are encouraged to generate opinion, ideas as quickly as possible without the need to think about the value of that opinion. The emphasis is on quantity, not quality. Number three is nominal group method. In here, learners are encouraged to add to their list at any time during this stage and develop opinions from one another. And the last one is group discussion. The types of group discussion techniques include whole group, and then focus group discussion, simulation, informal debate, role play, and another method. Okay, I think that's all what I can explain. For the next explanation will be delivered by Danang.
Thanks to previous presenter. Okay, my name is Danang Widyardika and now I'll talk about the learning techniques. So, let's get started. Learning technique. First, adjusting to the listener of students. This is included the language of the facilitator of educator. Make sure that the terms are used to the commonly used by student. The styles and appearance of the facilitator must also be adapted to the listener. Second, listening is important. When listening to someone, try not to immediately correct what is being said. You should also focus on the listener and try to understand what it really means from the other person's perspective. The third technique is be aware of what's happening in learning process. Look around and observe the learner. If there is a movement changing in student, then change the teaching method into a method that is attractive to them. Fourth, assumption test. In communicating, assumption can occur. This assumption can sometimes be good assumption or bad assumption. So the only way to know the truth is to ask, examine, and test the correctness of this assumption. And lastly, provide feedback, pattern, and way of speaking. Formulate and ask questions. When students ask to answer question, provide them with appropriate feedback and interact more than student and teacher, because teacher can also act as a friend of students. This material will be presented by Nabila.
Thank you, Danang Widyardika. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nabila Indah Nuraeni. I will continue the material, which is about learning strategies in Islamic perspective. In the context of learning strategy that is far ahead and oriented towards the general conditions of Islamic education in Indonesia, Abu Dinata views that education today is in a very poor condition. For this reason, he offers that the action that needs to be taken is to format the Islamic education curriculum with a format that is more integralistic and universal. Abu Dinata describes the aspects included in the basics of Islamic education, namely a wholeness or shumulia. Islamic education must be intact, meaning that it takes into account all aspects of man, body, soul, mind, and spirit. Education in the context of developing human resources, it is found in the Al-Quran, faces its students with all the totality of its elements. Al-Quran does not separate the physical and spiritual elements, but combines mental formation and mental formation, as well as not neglecting the body. Therefore, it is often found that the descriptions are presented with logical arguments accompanied by touches to the heart. B. Cohesiveness. The Islamic education curriculum should be integrated between one component and another integrality by paying attention to the following matters. 1. Islamic education must enact individuals by taking into account their personality, traits, body, soul, mind, and spirit that are originally related, living with each other so that if there is a change in one of its components, changes in the other components will take effect. 2. Islamic education must depart from integration among Islamic countries. He educates these individuals to have a loyal spirit of friendship and cooperation while basing their activities on the spirit and teaching of Islam. The various types and stages of education are seen as integrated between the various components and aspects. C. Continuity or balance. Islamic education must be continuous and inspirable by paying attention to the following aspects. 1. The education system needs to provide learning opportunities at every age level, schooling level, and in every setting. In Islam, there should be no obstacles in terms of age, occupation, position, and others. Second, the Islamic education system always updates itself or is dynamic with the changes that occur. Sayyidina Ali radhiyallahu anhu never gave advice, teach your children other knowledge than you learn, because they were created for your time, not yours. D. Authenticity. Islamic education must be original, based on Islamic teachings as summarized below. 1. Islamic education must take components, objective, materials, and methods in his curriculum for his own Islamic heritage before he perfected it with elements of other civilization. Second, must give priority to the spiritual education taught by Islam. 3. True Islamic spiritual education requires that we master Arabic, namely the language of the Quran and Sunnah. Last, this authenticity also requires the teaching of science and modern art in an atmosphere of development where the Islamic Aqidah is the guideline. E. Scientific. Islamic education must view science and technology as the most important components of modern civilization, and studying science and technology is an urgent necessity for the Islamic world if it does not want to be left behind. Furthermore, pay special attention to various modern science and techniques in the curriculum and various educational activities, only it must be in line with the spirit of Islam. F. Practical. The Islamic education curriculum can only speak theoretically, but it must be practicable, because science will not succeed if it is not practiced in reality. Islamic education should take into account that work is the most important component in daily life. Work is considered worship. So Islamic education forms people who believe in Islamic teachings, implement and defend them, and so that they form productive workers in the economic field and individuals who are active in society. G. Solidarity. Among the most important teachings in Islam are cooperation, brotherhood, and unity among Muslims. So Islamic education must be able to grow and strengthen the spirit of loyal friends among individuals and groups. H. Openness. Education must open the human soul to the universe and its creator, to life and living things, and to other nations and cultures. Islam does not recognize fanaticism, skin or social difference, because in Islam there is no racism. There is no difference between humans except for pity and fight. Thank you, that's all from us. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.